Oh, hey, everybody. Today we're going to talk about pulse surveys and why they're like your literal Swiss Army knife to getting to the root of what the heck is going on with your workforce, because it's not your fault, but it is your job to fix it. We're doing a little series here on surveys. I mean, if this is the first episode you're finding, go back out to the feed. I think it's best to start with ENPS, then engagement, then pulse. But this is not like a pick your poison. Which survey format do you want to use? You need a mix of all three because they're different and they have different goals. And if you haven't listened to those other episodes, let me just tell you really quick and catch you up. ENPS is just gauging every quarter. One question. Do you like working here? Do you? And over time, you're able to chart and have data to show executives like, hey, look, remember when you wanted to scale and I told you that was a bad idea because we have other issues? So now we just have more issues with more people? Yeah, you should have listened to me, but maybe you'll listen to me now. That's what ENPS is. Your engagement survey is the big old therapy session, and it lets everybody completely fall apart. I tell you in that episode what the 12 questions are according to Gallup to keep your survey short, but capture as much as you can, as much information about where in your employee experience things are falling apart. And now we're talking about pulse surveys. So if engagement surveys show you where your employee experience is the most busted, it's still pretty broad. So like when a bunch of people say, I don't know what's expected of me at work, you use your pulse surveys to dig deeper into just that specific part. So think about pulse surveys as your corporate bloodhound. They track down and pinpoint the root of very specific disengagement. So I hear people say often like, oh, we should send a survey. Let's send a pulse survey. What questions should we ask? No, friend. There should already be ENPS going on. And then an engagement survey should have already been sent. Then you take your pulse survey and you go into one statement of your engagement survey to dig deeper on, to focus on. So you never make up your pulse survey questions. And in my community, I have a guide for you. I have a template, like depending on which statements of your engagement survey you scored really low, I have example pulse survey questions that you would ask per statement that scored low from your engagement survey. It's kind of like taking something a step further. And you don't want to jump around and be like, oh, we scored low on, I have the materials and equipment I need to do my work right, and at work, I have the opportunity to do what I do best every day. So let's just ask some questions about that and some other stuff, and that'll be our pulse survey. No, false. That's what causes confusion for you and employees and gives you a little too much all over the place information where you still don't really know where to focus. So the strategy with your pulse survey is to use it to go further from what you learned on your engagement survey. There are lots of ways to figure out what questions to ask, and I haven't seen a bunch of templates out there that I like, so I made my own. Like I said, if you join Engagement Academy, you can have a 30-day free trial if you use the code podcast, so you can have the guide. But I have, per each statement, asked or come up with, like, these are the 3 to 5 questions I would ask to figure out, is it a manager issue? Is it a transparency and communication issue? Is it a teams issue? Is it like there's someone causing extreme emotional turmoil on a team? Is that the problem? Let me just give you an example. You sent out your engagement survey and you want to pick, at work, I have the opportunity to do what I do best every day. That scored super, super low. It's also low on the employee hierarchy of needs. Check out that episode. You have to work on things in order. So you know at the bottom of the pyramid, you're going to be making bigger impact than if you jump around and try and fix stuff on the top of the pyramid. And the top of the pyramid is stuff like, in the last 6 months, someone at work has talked to me about my progress. I'm jumping around a lot, but you need to have sent an engagement survey, which is directly mapped to the employee hierarchy of needs. They're kind of the same statements. And it's just like you can't be a pop star on a stage performing like Taylor Swift if you're naked and afraid and alone out in the woods and starving. So it's like Maslow's hierarchy. Don't implement peer recognition before your people say they know what's expected of them at work. But in this example, let's say that you scored really low on, at work, I have the opportunity to do what I do best every day. What you would do if you want to learn more about that and target your pulse survey to figure out what exactly do we need to fix in order to make that better. Some questions you could ask are the following. You would send a follow-up pulse survey and ask, how well do you feel your manager understands what you're great at? What strengths do you have that your manager might not know about but could be used more at work? How much does your current role match what's explained in your interview? That would basically figure out if like your onboarding is bad and like your interview process is amok. What tasks keep you from using your best skills? That tries to figure out if like daily life is like there's no process, there's tool bloat, there's no project management software, and there should be, etc. And what changes could help you spend more time on the things you're great at. This could be a manager issue, as well as those first ones I rattled off and didn't tell you what I was getting at with them. But those first two, how well do you feel like your manager understands what you're great at? What strengths does your manager not know about? And what changes could help you spend more time on the things you're great at? Those are trying to figure out where is the manager coming up short, which isn't the manager's fault. This is why you're sending the surveys. You're like, how can we serve everyone better? How do we set up the managers for more success? Managers don't get a lot of training, yet they are the ones who cause the most chaos and turmoil on teams because they don't know what they're doing and employees spend the most time with them. So pulse surveys are as simple as you should know totally what questions you're going to ask because you're going to have my template, but you're also going to know that you are trying to learn more about a very specific aspect of your engagement survey that scored very low. That's all. And what I love about pulse surveys is you don't have to score them. These are just open-ended, purely qualitative, which means not measurable, like words and feelings, survey results. You don't have to score anything until if your executive says, what was our score? You say, you're adorable. I love you. I mean, you're super focused on revenue. This is why you hired me. We don't score these, old buddy, old pal. These are telling us literally in employees' own words. We're going to find the patterns around why this part of our employee experience is busted and what we're going to do about it. Remember that negative employee feedback is not a bad thing. The inverse of what they're saying is the answers of what will drive engagement. So when you get negative survey results, don't take it personally. Employees are not mad at you. They're always so glad you asked. And we're usually falling apart about what it's like to work on our teams, which you're never even there for. So make sure to keep your head and remember that it's not a personal attack and we are trusting you to do something with the information. So in the guide I give you, there's some messaging that you could give to employees and explain the why. Remember, nobody likes to be told what to do. And especially with executives, if they're like, why are you sending another survey? Another survey? I have suggested content and like a script for you to explain to them that this isn't just another survey. This is a piece of your toolkit to get to the root. Like this survey isn't just about collecting more data for the sake of it. We're building a continuous feedback loop, which is what high-performing organizations do. The engagement survey gave us a broad overview, and now we need to dig deeper to identify specific roadblocks affecting productivity. Okay? That's how you get in front of an executive who's like, stop sending so many surveys. And you're like, why do you hate revenue? This is how we drive more revenue, friend. Those are the revenue drivers. They have things to say. And then for employees, you don't want this to feel like, oh my gosh, you just sent a survey. Why are you sending another one? So when you're talking to employees, you tell them, you build on the last survey. Whether it was your engagement survey or not, you basically send pulse surveys in the off months of sending ENPS, which is quarterly, and an engagement survey, which is once a year. And the next episode is about the manager survey, which is also once a year. So pulse surveys happen in the off months. And because they're only a few questions, it's not that bad at all to keep up with. So when you're talking to employees, like, you always want to tell people what you're doing and why you're sending another survey. And you would tell them. You can build a lot of trust by saying and like owning the truth. Like, let's say your engagement survey went really, really bad in that it was just a angry hot dumpster fire of negative feedback. You would say, thank you for sharing your super honest feedback in our engagement survey. We heard you and we're setting a quick follow-up survey to dig deeper into the areas you said need attention. I promise we're not survey crazy. This is just your chance to tell us exactly what we can do better based on things that you told us in that last survey. So we're really focused on making this a great place to work for you. And your responses are anonymous because they should be. Always. Always. And we truly value every bit of feedback that you give. So you can drive engagement in the face of very much disengagement. A lot of times in my experience, companies would just send a survey, we wouldn't hear anything, and it would tick us off. Or they would say, thanks for taking this survey. We're only going to talk about where we scored good. Like, that's a mistake too. And this is just part of you getting to have the tools in your toolkit to actually feel like you can sleep at night knowing exactly why your unique workforce is disengaged. You need to be able to send pulse surveys. And when you get the results back, you can just download a CSV, like a spreadsheet, throw it into ChatGPT and say, this is what I was trying to learn more about. I was exploring this statement on our engagement survey, and these were the questions I asked, and these were the responses. Can you please help me find the patterns more quickly? You'll basically have an answer in like 0.7 seconds where you will, yes, of course, go double check. But if you haven't tried ChatGPT to just help you work a little faster, I promise you it's not going to bite. And if you need help, send me a message on LinkedIn. I train people on this all the time. But your pulse surveys are your corporate bloodhound to go sniff out exactly what is wrong for a certain part of your employee experience. You don't want to jump around and ask questions all over the place. That's going in too many directions. You're not going to have actionable feedback, or you're going to feel confused and feel like you have to go work on all of it. So don't do that. But I think it's the easiest format to send. And this one is like the art form where you're like, I knew it. People don't know what's expected of them at work. Let's start at the bottom. What is it? Is it a tools issue? Is it a manager issue? Is it a communication issue? Is it a teams issue? So please, my friends, do not let yourself feel like it's too hard to send surveys, that you don't have time to send surveys. What we're doing on this show, in this series, is really getting you comfortable with understanding what the different formats are, when you would send them, what questions to ask. I literally have guides for you that you can download and print or like save to your desktop or email to all your HR friends and say, this is how we're supposed to be sending surveys. Because this content doesn't exist and it makes me crazy. So we're building it here. But you cannot drive engagement if you do not feel very comfortable with what survey you're sending next, what you're trying to learn, and how you're going to set aside time to go through the data and come up with solutions. It is a lot easier than you think. And I'm starting to get feedback from the members in the community who are taking the training, the Engagement Accelerator training, and they're like, Christy, I've been overthinking it. I'm like, I know, it's okay. It's not your fault because nobody was teaching this. But hopefully after this episode, you see pulse surveys definitely do not bite. They are like the most easiest of the formats to send. And they tell you the most information about literally what to focus on. How many times can I say literally in this episode? I think I've said it at least 17 times. I need to expand my vocabulary. But for now, that's it. That's your pulse surveys. If you have any specific questions, reach out to me on LinkedIn or join the community. I'll probably be like, that's a great question. Get in the office hours because other people have that question too, and we can't wait to talk to you. But your pulse surveys do not have to be scored. They're purely qualitative, and they are your Swiss Army knife for hearing an employee's own words. What the heck do you need from us so that we can do it because we love you and we want you to stay here and work here and be productive? That's the goal. And also, there's no such thing as survey fatigue. If you're like, Chris, this is too many surveys. There's no such thing as survey fatigue, but there is reckless survey sending when you're not telling people the why, when you're not following back up at all hands and sharing the results. So by all means, let your survey freak flag fly. You need it. This is your gift of empathy at play here. The surveys are literally you sending out a beacon of hope to employees saying, we're listening to you. What is it? Tell us in all the ways that you can. You're going to see how much fun driving engagement can really be when you start to make changes to your employee experience and they work and your scores get higher and people stay longer and your company makes more money and your executive's like, what's going on? And you're like, I'm amazing at my job. That's what's going on. Because that's what causes people to stay, is they just want to have meaning in their work and feel like the company cares about them. And employees are not looking for perfection. They're just looking for effort. Okay, that turned into a pep talk on top of a pep talk, but you should be clear on pulse surveys now. And next week, we're going to talk about manager surveys because they drive 70% of disengagement. Okay, it's the optional fourth format, but I highly recommend it. And I kind of made it up. So you're going to have my guide for that too. Until then, I just want you to know you're doing great. I couldn't have done your job. I did not work in HR. You know that. I'm a researcher who was trying to figure out what was wrong with me and why I hated every company I worked at except a few. And I see so clearly now that you all were not given the training or the tools you needed to really do this at scale. And now you're getting it. So I believe in you. I'm so happy you're listening. Tell all your friends and drop me a message on LinkedIn. I love you guys. I'll talk to you next week.